Welcome everybody to the HEALEY ALS Platform Trial webinar update. Sorry we had to start a couple minutes late. I want to first introduce the panelists who will be speaking to you today. We're going to give a little update on the platform trial and then have lots of time for Q&A. So on the panel we have Dr. Jinsey Andrews from Columbia University, Dr. James Berry from the Healy Center at Mass General, Marianne Chase, Director of Operations from the Healy Center at Mass General, myself, Merit Sukovich from the Healy Center, Sabrina Paganoni, also from the Healy Center, a physician, Lindsay Pothier from the Healy Center, is one of our project managers, senior project managers, and Jeremy Scheffner, Dr. Jeremy Scheffner from the Barrow Neurological Institute, who runs the Outcomes and Monitoring Center for this study and for Niels. We also have invited Reagan Healy, who's going to say a few words, who's the sister of Sean Healy, and Madeline Kennedy, who's on our patient advisory board, who will also say a few words. So we did get a lot of questions beforehand, which is great, and then we're also getting questions now. We'll do our best to answer all of them. Whichever ones we don't get to, we'll answer and post on our website. Next slide, please. So if you have a question, some of you are already writing in, just please write them in the chat box, and then we'll get to them at the end and ask our panel to help answer those. Next slide, please. So today we want to give an update on the progress since our last webinar. So really the last 3 months, the activities to get the platform trial off the ground. Talk a little bit about the impact of COVID-19 and where we're headed for the platform trial. But I think the key take-home points are that despite COVID-19, ALS research continues, both in the lab and clinical research and trials. There are some activities that have to be adjusted for the safety of our patients and also for our staff, but there's a commitment really from Niels and all ALS centers to keep progress moving for our patients with ALS. Next slide, please. So I wanted to take a moment and really just thank the people many people who've really been behind making this new way of developing treatments for ALS possible. This is really thanks to Sean Healy, shown here on the left in the middle next to me, and his friends and family who really made it part of their mission to help accelerate ALS therapy through a great philanthropic gift. With him, surrounding him, our scientific advisory board, which are ALS scientists and clinicians from all around the world who are giving advice on which therapies to bring forward and answering really any questions that we might have. And then on the right is another amazing family, the Green family, that started Tackle ALS to help really give some of the seed money to get this off the ground. And with that, I just want to take a moment and ask Reagan Healy if she's unmuted, if she might share a few words.
Hi, can you hear me, Merit?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, great. Hi, everyone. I can't see you, but I can hear you. I'm really glad that we can update you today and let you know of our never-ending commitment to you and your families. I'm in New York right now, and every night at 7 p.m., the city erupts with cheering, drum pounding, and clapping to thank our healthcare professionals and all of our frontline workers during this corona crisis. It's heard as a low rumble if you're inside, and then a thunderous chorus when you open the window. Yeah. But I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I scream and I cheer for you all and for my brother Sean. And I want you to know that Sean and the Healy Center are and will continue to be the strongest voices on your behalf. We will put an end to the ALS crisis. So, just hang in. Thank you so much. And thank you to Merit and everyone who's working so hard, and everybody, stay safe during this time.
Thank you, Reagan. Yeah, stay safe. Thank you very much. All right, next slide, Molly, please. So before we dive into the updates, I also want to acknowledge several other amazing supporters of the platform trial, really starting with the ALS Association that's given a grant, an amazing grant to support the platform trial, and a few other organizations, including Salsa for a Cure, ALS One, the Arthur Blank Foundation, ALS Finding a Cure, I Am ALS. It's really a community effort to really change how we're approaching therapy development and really speed up the whole process. So we couldn't do it without them. Next slide, please. So from day one, when we were designing this and thinking about this idea, we've had amazing input from people with ALS and caregivers of people with ALS. And it's really shaped in such a positive way how this trial has been designed, and also the advocacy at the government to help move this forward as well. So we actually had our first advisory committee about almost a year ago to get some input, and have had several since then. I just want to thank them. Madeline's one of the many people on our patient advisory committee, and you'll hear from her soon. With that, I think I'm going to pass to Sabrina to give a little update and just a little background on the platform trial for those who might not have heard it, and then we'll jump into the more current update. Thank you. Next slide, please. Sabrina?
Thank you, Merit. I think you can see me. Hi. I want to start by saying that this is the right time for a platform trial for ALS. And the reason I'm saying that is that we have hundreds of companies in the ALS space and thousands of investigators all around the world making progress. At the same time, we know that the number one concern for patients and their families is to find new treatments as quickly as possible. And the platform trial allows just that. It's an innovative system for us to test as many treatments as possible in a more efficient and informative way. So in a traditional trial, we only test one drug at a time. In a platform trial, we test multiple treatments at the same time. And we can continue to add treatments as they become available. And by doing that, we can reduce the time to finding effective treatments. Next slide, please. So our mantra is less placebo, more access, and more options. And I want to explain what I mean by that. We're trying to do everything we can to make the trial as patient-centered as possible. And because we're testing multiple treatments at the same time, with the platform approach, we can do something that would not be possible in a traditional trial. Specifically, we can share placebo data across different treatments. And let me explain how this works. From a patient perspective, this means that the chances of being randomized to active treatment are much higher than in the traditional approach. So traditionally, there is a 50-50 chance of being assigned to either active or placebo. And in the platform trial, instead, for every 4 people that enter the trial, 3 will go on active treatment and only 1 on placebo. And then at the end of the trial, the data from all the placebo participants are shared, so that each individual treatment is compared to a large enough placebo group to be able to make scientific conclusions. So it's a win-win for everyone. One more, please. And then at the end of the placebo-controlled trial, everyone who completes the placebo-controlled portion of the trial can choose to enter an open-label extension. And what that means is that they can choose to receive active treatment long-term. They can also decline this option. Next, please. And they can choose to try to rescreen for the platform trial again. So if they're still eligible, they can be assigned to another treatment. Next slide. Because we are so excited about the impact of the platform trial and what it means for patients, we spent the last year working as hard as we could to launch the trial quickly. So we worked with several stakeholders in the ALS community, including investigators, industry, patients, and the FDA. And we are thrilled that the entire community has come together to make this trial a reality. And so now I want to summarize a few key milestones. Next slide, please. First, we selected promising treatments to be tested in the platform. And so to this end, we issued a request for proposals in May of 2019, and we had a huge response. 27 companies wanted to enter the trial and so submitted nominations for their drugs. And a group of very experienced ALS scientists selected the first 5 to enter the trial. And the treatments were selected based on exciting preclinical data and also based on prior experience in early phase human trials that made these drugs a great fit for the platform. And of note, we continue to review new treatments on a rolling basis, and we will continue to add more in the near future. Next slide, please. Next, we partnered with the FDA and had a series of very positive meetings. The pictures here are from our first 2 meetings in 2019, and the FDA has provided a lot of support to our approach, and we're grateful for that. And as you may know, we received the FDA May Proceed letter in January of 2020, and this means that we got a green light from the FDA to start the platform trial. Next slide, please. All along the way, we have been working with several ALS clinics and investigators that are part of the NEALS Consortium. The NEALS Consortium is a consortium of hospitals and ALS clinics that have a lot of experience with clinical trials. So our goal was to bring the trial as close as possible to where patients live. And we're excited to be launching the trial at 54 NEALS locations. And we also hope to continue to add more as the trial expands and more treatments are added. We received IRB approval in March 2020. The IRB is the Institutional Review Board, and it's a board that needs to approve the trial at a hospital level. And fortunately, through the NEALS Consortium, we are able to leverage the NEALS Central IRB. And this really helped streamline our operations because we only needed to get approval from one central IRB rather than from 54 IRBs at each hospital. So we were quite happy about that. Next slide, please. Another recent milestone that I want to talk about is the kickoff investigator meeting. We had the meeting on March 12 and 13. Kickoff meetings are required at the beginning of every trial so that every investigator, every coordinator can meet and be trained on the protocol. Everyone needs to be on the same page. And this is incredibly important to ensure that everyone, regardless of their location, can follow the exact procedures and processes. So our kickoff meeting was scheduled to occur in person. We were going to meet for 2 days in a Boston hotel. But the week before, there was a COVID outbreak in Boston. So we were required to change the meeting to virtual. And I'm glad to report that the meeting was a huge success. We had over 250 attendees. Everyone connected online using the video conferencing tool. And there were lots of active discussions and lots of participation during the 2-day meeting. And we also got a lot of positive comments afterwards. And so I think this is a testament to the commitment of our entire team, including all participating ALS clinics. Everyone involved in the platform trial is really committed and determined to move this forward. Next slide, please. So here I'm summarizing our key milestones. And as you can see, we have come a long way and we're so close to launch. So the original timeline was that we would start enrolling participants in late March 2020. And we would have made it if not for COVID-19. But I want to assure you that COVID-19 is only a bump in the road and not a complete roadblock. So now I want to turn it over to Dr. Sukovic, who will describe what we are doing to address this challenge.
Thank you, Sabrina. Next slide, please. So I want to highlight, before I go into the COVID-19 impact, really the enormous progress that has been made. As Sabrina mentioned, we have FDA and IRB approval for the first 3 drugs, and those are the ones that we submitted both to the FDA and to the IRB, and that's huge progress. We've also been working very closely with the 4th drug that we want to add, which is by a company, Prolenia. And we're making great progress on that because we're hoping to add that as the 4th option. And we're also starting discussions with the 5th company so we can start planning for that. And in addition, while the Healey Center kind of helped jumpstart the first 5 arms, we have an open enrolling option for any company or any academic with the drugs who wants to bring it forward to the platform trial. And we've had actually several companies apply for that, and we have recently picked another one that we're going to add. So those will happen later on in the year, but I wanted people to know that there's progress not just on the first 3, but also on the next ones. And there's still lots of interest from companies as well as patients in this approach and academics. So we're determined to keep this going and keep it and have it be the success that we really anticipate it will be in accelerating how we find treatments. So, and all our teams are still working on this. It's very much in motion so that when it's safe to be enrolling people, we will be moving forward on the platform trial. So as you know from the COVID-19 press and what we're all living through, a lot of the centers and a lot of our patients have really had a big impact from this. So at a lot of the centers, the normal workflow isn't happening. So a lot of centers are trying to care for their patients remotely with virtual visits. For research, for ongoing trials, everybody's trying to do their best to either move the visits virtual, or if people have to come in because the treatments need to be administered in a hospital, finding ways to do that safely. There's definitely regional variability, and some cities are hit much harder and really can't do much safely. Other ones not so much yet. There's a lot of help, federal and state and local, about setting some rules. The FDA has issued, enormously helpful guidelines for how to do clinical trials in the time of COVID-19, especially around the ability to try to do some things virtual, to allow some protocol deviations and record them as due to COVID-19. So several ALS trials right now that were active, hadn't started enrolling, are still keeping people in the trials and just shifting to remote options. So a lot of activity there. Really the goal to keep ALS trials going as safely as possible. Next slide, please. Well, I want to add to that is at some of the centers, the ALS doctors and nurses are able to full-time stay and taking care of the patients. At other hospitals, depending again on the number of patients coming in with COVID-19, some of the ALS teams are also being deployed to help COVID patients. And so all of that has an impact on the kind of speed of getting things up and running. But we are committed to beginning this platform trial as soon as possible, and mainly as soon as it's safe to do that. So this is what we're doing in the meantime. We are, as you heard, we have the IRB approval for the protocol. We still need to, once we have that, we still need to get each site's a specific consent form approved, and that's not a difficult thing, but it's something that we do with each site because there are different state language rules for things like confidentiality, so minor changes. So we're working with all the sites to get their consent forms ready. We're also doing training with the sites so that they're ready, and doing everything that's really called study startup, so that the moment it's safe to enroll, we can enroll our sites. I do think we're going to make up a lot of time in that initially our plans were to roll out some of our early sites in April, a few more sites in May, and then all the sites by June, kind of in a rolling basis. I think because of COVID-19, it's going to be less of a roll. It's going to be more everybody open at the same time or close to the same time once it's safe to do that. So the hope again is that we'll make up for some of this time that we have to really pause for safety reasons with enrollment. But the activity itself isn't paused. So I just wanted people to know that, and the sites all over the United States are working on all the things they can do and doing their best by doing that remotely. The other thing that we want to do is really prepare for the long term. No one knows how long the COVID-19 is going to last. Each one of us is probably hearing slightly different things based on what state you are, but we do anticipate that it's probably 6 to 8 weeks, if not longer. And so I can't tell anyone what date we think we're going to enroll. I can only promise you that the moment it's safe to do that, we'll do it. And maybe it'll be safer in some states than the other, but we're getting everybody ready to go as soon as we can. Next slide, please. So while we're kind of getting all our sites ready and getting all our ducks in a row so that we can open up as soon as it's safe to do, we're also, thinking about what would happen if, this COVID-19 situation is longer than 6 to 8 weeks, or if it comes in waves. I know we all probably read different news channels, but we're all reading the news And nobody really knows if it's how long this is going to be, and maybe it'll be waves, and we want to be prepared for that. And so we have a group thinking about how we could do that safely, and also get informative data, because in the end we want to do both. We want to do things safely, but we also want to find out if a drug works or not. So we've been talking to a group of investigators, our industry partners. We've gotten some names from patients and their family members of great groups to go to about what could we do that might be in the home. And we know we can do virtual visits. We can collect our primary outcome measure, the ALS functional range scale, that way. Are there other things that we could do at the home if needed, like safety assessments, cardiograms? Could we ship medication sometimes to the home? And are there other outcome measures that we could do in the home? We were already planning to build some of these into the platform, like a home voice measure that Dr. Scheffner has worked on very hard. So we're trying to think what we can do that, should there be waves of time where people can't come into the hospital, could we shift some of those visits to like a minimal set of what we need to do in the home? And in the big picture, this is going to help ALS trials in the future as well. So we're working on that. We're thinking creatively about that and how we can implement that in the platform trial. And really all other ALS trials are thinking about this as well, and we're really communicating, with each other and our colleagues all over the world on these kind of ideas. Next slide, please. So I think the key things I wanted people to really hear is that there's been huge progress on the first 3 regimens. We're working on 4, 5, and 6 at the same time. There are things that are in motion at the sites, so we're getting them all ready and trained so that when we can start enrolling, they're all going to be ready. And we're really thinking about these remote assessments for this trial, but also for other trials as we move forward. We're going to try to have these webinars once in a while, but we're also going to post things on the NEALS website. There'll be the recording of this, as well as the NEALS webinar that happened on March 27th, put things on the Healey Center website, as well as share with the foundation's information. And with that, I have one more slide, and I want to ask Madeline to say some words. So next slide, please. So at the moment, we have 54 centers in the US. We do have about 20 other sites very interested on the backup list that we might expand to in the future. But the sites are listed on our website. They'll also be on the clinicaltrial.gov website as well. And with that, Madeline, if you're unmuted, I would love for you to say some words as well. Oh, I can't hear you, Madeline.
There we go. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay. Well, I'm just delighted to be here with you all and to have this opportunity to share my perspective as an individual living with this relentless disease. All of us who live every day with ALS have moments of hopelessness and despair. The failure of a major phase 3 trial several years ago left us all devastated. When would such a resource-intensive effort be possible again? Well, the answer is the HEALEY Center Platform Trials. The development of clinical trials in ALS utilizing the platform structure format is a game changer in the search for new treatments, effective interventions, and eventual cures for this terminal disease. It has been exciting to see this new trial design come online. I applaud the commitment and the drive of so many who have dedicated their professional careers to conquering ALS. But now, COVID-19 has changed our daily existence in virtually every city, town, and hamlet. The Healey Center team is working full speed to have the platform trials ready when the world opens up again. They are well into developing the workarounds to conduct these trials in a safe, timely, and efficient manner. What can be done? Evaluated locally. What measurements could be used to assess progression remotely or without significant travel? What local medical resources might be considered with the increasing utilization of the health system in dealing with COVID-19? I am confident and impressed that this team of dedicated providers who best know our limitations, as well as the potential risks to our participation, are working now to be ready when the environment will allow these essential trials to progress in a safe manner. Thank you all for your work on our behalf. Merritt, Sabrina, Sean, everybody. It takes a village. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madeline. Thank you for your words and inspiring us and your belief in us. It's good to see you.
Thank
So
you.